The morning of the train was the only morning of my life that began with my sister speaking my name like she needed something from me. We were in a hotel room near the Boston and Albany depot, 2 narrow beds and a window seat that caught the early sun. The polished wood between us held a folded mail order contract and a small hand-painted daguerreotype in a tin case. Her face in the daguerreotype. My face in the daguerreotype. We had the same face. We had always had the same face. "Eleanor," Cordelia said, and she could not look at me when she said it. "Eleanor, I cannot go." I had been laying out her travel things on the bed because that was what I did. I laid out other people's things. I had laid out our cousin Margaret's bedside cup of water for 2 years until the morning Margaret stopped breathing, and the morning after that I had laid out her funeral lace, and the morning after that I had laid out my own plain mourning dress and asked Cordelia, almost shyly, if she might let me come west with her as far as Chicago, because I did not know what else to do with myself. Cordelia had said yes. Cordelia had said, "Of course, dear, of course you must come. We will see each other off." Now Cordelia was sitting up in the hotel bed with her cream silk morning dress not yet buttoned at the throat, the small ivory cameo loose in her palm, and she was telling me she could not go. "Cordelia," I said, my voice came out flat. "The train leaves in 2 hours. "I know," she said. "You signed the contract in October." "I know." "You took the bride fare." "Eleanor." "You wrote him 3 letters. He has been writing back for 4 months. He has built a cabin." "Eleanor, please." I sat down on the edge of the window seat. The contract was between us. Her penciled signature ran clean across the bottom. Cordelia Rose Whitmore, in the upright handwriting our mother had drilled into us both. "There is a man in Boston," she said. I did not answer. "His name is Mr. Hartley. He teaches at Boston Latin. I met him at the Athenaeum in October. The same week I answered the advertisement, Eleanor. The very same week, can you imagine? And I tried not to. I tried for 6 weeks not to. I told myself I had given my word to Idaho. But he came to the Athenaeum every Tuesday and Thursday, and I went too. And last night, Eleanor, last night he asked me if I had any ties west, and I told him yes. And he asked me if any of those ties were heavier than him, and I could not say yes. Cordelia, I cannot go. You cannot unsign a contract by feeling sorry. I know. He has been waiting at a wagon platform in Idaho Territory for 9 days of train and a day of stagecoach. A stranger has been counting days on a calendar. I know. Cordelia, what do you want from me? She looked at me then. She had always been the one who could look at people. She had always been the one who could speak first. 11 minutes older, our mother used to say, and 11 years braver. Cordelia put her hand on top of mine on the window seat and said the sentence I had been refusing to hear since she sat up in bed. Go in my place. No. Eleanor. No, Cordelia. We have the same face. He has my photograph. He has your photograph. He has been looking at it for 4 months. He has a photograph, she said. He has my face. You have my face. He will not know. He will know. How will he know? Because I am not you. Eleanor. Her hand tightened on mine. Listen to me. He does not know me either. He has never met me. He has my penciled signature and my photograph and 3 letters about Boston weather. He has a face. You have the face. The contract is for a wife. You can be a wife. You can keep a hearth. You have kept ours. You have kept Margaret's. You can keep his. It is a lie, Cordelia. It is a face. It is a man. It is a chance, Eleanor. She was crying now, quietly, the way Cordelia had always cried, without sound, only the mouth shaking. It is a chance you will not get again, not in Boston, not in this house, not as Margaret's nurse, not as Mother's spinster, not at any door in this city. Eleanor, you have never once been chosen first. Not for the school recital, not for the dance card, not for the engagement, not for any of it. I have been chosen for everything, and I have squandered every one of them. And now I am squandering this one too, and I am asking you, I am begging you, take this one. Take this one because I am throwing it away, and at least one of us should walk out the door that opens. I did not speak. Wear the veil, she said. I packed a black mourning veil into the trunk last night. I packed it for you. Pin it on at the platform. Tell him you are still in mourning for our cousin. He will lift the veil and see the face in the photograph, because the face in the photograph is your face. And by the time the veil is up, the contract will already be his, and you will already be there, and he will not turn around a woman who has come 9 days west on his bride fare. And if he does, then he is not the man for either of us, and you come home. I looked down at the contract on the polished wood between us. I looked at her penciled signature, Cordelia Rose Whitmore, and I felt something inside me that I had not felt in 23 years of being the second twin. It was not bravery. It was not love. It was the small, hard, ugly certainty that I had been chosen by my sister to walk through a door my sister was closing behind her, and that the door, once I walked through it, would be the only door of my life. I picked up the pencil from the windowsill. I held it for a long moment, and then, underneath Cordelia's penciled signature on the bottom of the mail order contract, I wrote, small but clear, Eleanor Margaret Whitmore, my own name. The name nobody at the Sawtooth wagon platform would ever read. The name I would not say aloud to a single soul for 11 weeks. I wrote it because if I was going to lie with my face, I was not going to lie with my hand. I wrote it because somewhere, on some piece of paper, I needed the truth to exist in pencil. I wrote it the way a woman signs the deed to her own life. Cordelia did not see me write it. Cordelia was looking out the window at the carriages on Beacon Street. I folded the contract and put it in the bottom of the leather valise under the wool stockings, where it would stay folded for 11 weeks. Then I put on her veil. The train was a dream of glass and coal smoke. 9 days through Albany and Buffalo and Chicago and Omaha and the long flat plains and the long climb into the Rockies, and at every change of train, I was Cordelia Rose Whitmore on the ticket, and Eleanor Margaret Whitmore under the veil, and the conductors tipped their caps to a name that was not mine, and I nodded back through black netting and read the King James Bible Cordelia had not packed, and the small cloth-bound volume of Tennyson Cordelia had packed instead. By Omaha, I had stopped crying at night. By Cheyenne, I had stopped flinching when men called me ma'am. Ma'am, would you take coffee? Yes, please. Ma'am, the next stop is 20 minutes. Thank you. Ma'am, will the gentleman be meeting you in Pocatello? There is no gentleman in Pocatello. Idaho Territory, then. Yes, Idaho Territory. By Pocatello, I had taken the veil off in the sleeping berth and looked at my own face in the small tin mirror by lamplight and asked myself, in a whisper too quiet for the porter to hear, "Who are you tonight, Eleanor?" I did not have an answer. I put the veil back on at dawn. The stagecoach from Pocatello to Sawtooth Crossing took a day and a night, and most of another day. The Concord swayed on its leather thoroughbraces, and the 4 horses smelled of dust and sweat, and the high pine air came in through the leather curtains and smelled of something I had never smelled in Boston: cold stone and resin and a sharper wind than the Atlantic ever gave us. 2 miners shared the coach as far as Haley. After Haley, it was only me, alone with a carpet bag and a leather valise and a folded contract under the wool stockings and a black veil pinned hard against the wind. The driver called down from the box near Sunset. "Sawtooth Crossing, ma'am. He's waitin'." Already. He's been waitin' 4 days that I know of, maybe more. 4 days. He came down off the mountain on Tuesday, took a room at the boarding house, wouldn't take supper, walked the boards every dusk. Then he saw the road dust this evening, and he came out, and he ain't moved from that platform in a half hour. You know him. Everyone in this corner of the territory knows him. Silas Byrne, foreman of the Lone Cedar. Ain't a man you keep waiting if you can help it. Driver? Ma'am. Is he kind? Ma'am, I drive a coach. I don't write character references, but I will say, I have seen him buy supper for a stranger and ride 16 miles in a blizzard for a hurt mule. Make of that what you will. I lifted the leather curtain. The platform was a single weathered boardwalk in front of a small false front boarding house. Snowy peaks rose behind it, the color of bone in the last light. Dust drifted in the warm, low sun. 2 horses at a hitching post, a wagon, a few miners on the boarding house porch, watching with the polite disinterest of men who had been watching arrivals for years. And at the far end of the empty platform, alone, a man. He was bare-chested in the cold, high air. He had a shirt slung over the wagon rail behind him, as if he had taken it off to load something heavy and had not put it back on, and the sun was on him in a long, warm sheet. Broad, muscular build, sharp 6-pack abs, deeply tanned, weathered skin. A long, deep diagonal scar from his right collarbone down to his sternum. Shoulder-length dark brown hair tied back with a leather cord. A full, thick, dark beard. Calm, steady, pale blue eyes. Dark brown buckskin trousers held by a wide leather belt with a brass buckle. Knee-high brown leather boots. He was holding a wide-brim brown leather hat in his right hand at his side, and even from across the platform, I could see that his left thumb was calloused. He started walking toward me as I stepped down from the coach. He walked the way a man walks who has decided already what kind of arrival this is going to be. Slow and even. Not fast, not slow. The boardwalk creaked. The driver hauled my carpet bag down. The miners on the porch watched without watching. He came on across the empty boards with the sun behind him and stopped 2 feet from me with the leather hat still in his right hand. He did not say my sister's name. He said, "You came." "I came," I said, through the netting. He looked at me a long moment through the veil. Pale blue eyes calm above the dark beard. He lifted his left hand, his thumb, calloused, the pad of it warm, I would learn later, caught the lower edge of the veil and turned it back over the brim of my traveling bonnet in one slow motion. He saw my face. He saw a face that was not the face in the daguerreotype my sister had mailed him. He saw it because my sister had been right about everything, except the one thing she did not know. That a man who has stared at a daguerreotype for 4 months knows the carriage of the woman in it, knows the line at the corner of the mouth, knows the lift of the chin in a way he could not put into words but could feel under his thumb. He stopped moving for one full breath. It was a held breath. I watched his chest. I watched the long diagonal scar across the bare chest, and the breath he did not let out for what felt like a long minute and was probably less than 2 seconds. I watched the calm, pale blue eyes go through something I could not name and come back out the other side of it. Then he kept walking forward. He kept the small motion of his thumb. He set the veil over the brim of my bonnet so it would not blow back over my face. He took my gloved hand in his. He smiled, slowly, the smallest pre-smile at the corner of the mouth, then the rest of it, like a man smiles who has just decided something he is not going to take back. "Then we'd best get you out of the cold," he said. He offered me his arm. "Mr. Byrne, Silas, take the arm. The driver wants to be moving on. The boarding house keeper wants his porch back." All right, I took it. I took it because the alternative was the empty platform and a coach that would not turn around for another 2 days, and because under the veil I had been crying without sound for the last 60 seconds, and because his arm under my hand was warm and steady and did not flinch when my fingers closed. "Wait here a moment." "What?" "The carpet bag, the valise. I'll get them. You stand." He loaded the carpet bag and the valise into the wagon bed. He helped me up onto the seat. "Up you go, hand here, foot there, sit yourself. Your shirt, don't need it. It is cold. I run warm." He climbed up beside me without putting on the shirt. He laid it over the back of the seat as if a shirt were a thing other men needed, and clucked once to the team, and we rolled off the boardwalk into a switchback dirt road that climbed into the pine forest above the town. How far? An hour. The road bends 7 times. Tell me when you see the second bend. That's the halfway. If this story is finding you tonight, take a moment to press the like button below. It helps stories like this find the women who need them. The cabin came in sight after an hour of switchbacks. He had built it himself, 2 rooms hand-notched, single stone hearth chimney, a small windowsill, a roof that knew its own weight in snow. He pulled the team up. He climbed down. He turned and lifted me down from the seat with both hands at my waist as if I weighed nothing, and set me on my feet in the yard, and stepped back. "It's not Boston," he said. "It's mine. I built it. It's beautiful. 2 rooms, 1 hearth, a roof that knows its own snow. Did you build it for her? I built it before her, then for her, now for whoever sleeps under it." He carried the valise inside. He set it at the foot of a hand-built bed in the smaller room and did not open it. He did not ask me to. Hearth there, water bucket there, wood box there, 2 tin plates, 2 tin cups. The Bible on the bedside table is my mother's. The lamp on the wall I lit at dusk to mark the road for you. I lit it 3 nights running in case the coach came in early. You came in on the 3rd night. You lit a lamp for 3 nights. A man does what he can. Silas, you're tired. I'll heat water. I can heat water. You came 9 days. I'll heat the water tonight. He did. He heated the water in a kettle on the hearth and brought a tin basin in from the porch and set it behind a hung blanket so I could wash. And he went outside and split kindling in the dusk, while I washed 9 days of dust and coal smoke off my face and looked at my own face in the small tin mirror over the basin and whispered, again, the question I had whispered in the sleeping berth. "Who are you tonight, Eleanor?" And again, I did not have an answer. I came out from behind the blanket in a clean, dark dress. He came in from the porch with an armful of kindling on his bare brown forearm and a fine layer of dust across the deep, diagonal scar at his chest. And he set the kindling in the box, and he looked at me. Really looked, calm and steady. and he did not say my sister's name. "You'll want to eat," he said. "I'm not hungry." "You'll want to eat anyway." He cooked. He cooked elk stew over the hearth and cut bread with a pocket knife and laid out 2 tin plates on the small wooden table and pulled out a chair for me. He sat across from me. He did not bow his head over the food the way Boston men bow their heads. He looked at his plate, and then at my face, and then at his plate again. "I'm not much for grace at the table. You don't say it. I say it once a year on the day my mother died. Other days I figure the food does the praying. Do Boston men say grace? Boston men say a great many things. Some of them mean them. Eat your stew." "Yes, sir." "Don't sir me. What should I call you?" "Silas, just Silas, always, from here on." "Silas, that's better." I ate. "That mountain on the right we passed." "Yes." "That's Bald. The flat-topped one was Sawtooth proper. The notch behind is where the road climbs to the Lone Cedar. That's the outfit I'm foreman of. The Lone Cedar. Silver, 40 men under me. 2 of them you'll meet by Saturday, McAllister and Pratt. They'll come up the road for coffee one morning and pretend they happened by." "Did you bring me here on a Tuesday on purpose?" "I did. I wanted 4 days alone with you before the men came pretending. That horse out there, Sage, roan gelding, 16 hands. He'll be your horse if you want him. He's already got an owner. Owner's share, owner's share, ma'am, when they like the company." He had almost said my real name. He did not catch it. He looked down at his stew. He went on with steady talk, the way a man goes on with steady talk when a moment has gotten away from him. "I'm Silas Byrne. I forget I haven't said it across the table." A small, cold thing moved in my throat because my sister had written him 3 letters and had presumably called him Silas in every one of them. And now he was saying it to me as if it were the first time. "Pleased to meet you, Mr. Byrne." "Silas." "Silas." He smiled into his stew. He gave me the bedroom. "This room is yours. Where will you—" "Bedroll by the hearth." "Silas, I cannot—" "You can. You came 9 days. You will sleep in a bed tonight. I have slept on the ground in worse weather than this. This is your house." "It is, and I am giving you the bed in it. There will be no argument tonight. Good night, my dear." He took a bedroll on the floor by the hearth without making any speech about it, and he banked the fire low, and he said good night without crossing the threshold of the bedroom. I lay awake for a long time, listening to him breathe in the next room and thinking. He saw. He saw at the platform. He stopped for one breath, and then he kept walking toward me. What kind of man does that? I did not have an answer for that question either. The first week he taught me the cabin. Flowers in the tin, salt pork hangs in the smokehouse out the back, dried apples in the cloth bag on the high shelf. Keep them out of the mice. What about the well? Wells by the woodshed. Rope sticks in cold weather. Wear a glove. The privy. Path on the north side. Lantern on the hook beside the back door. Take it after dark. And the spring. Spring's a quarter mile up. Cleanest water in the territory. I'll walk you up tomorrow. He did not touch me. He did not try. He slept on the bedroll by the hearth for 7 nights in a row, and on the 8th night, when I came out into the front room in a wool shawl because I could not sleep, he was awake by the low fire. Can't sleep? No. Sit a minute. He moved over on the bench. I sat. We sat in the firelight without speaking until I was warm enough to go back to bed, and when I rose, he said only, "Good night, my dear," and did not look up from the coals. The second week, he taught me to ride. It was a clear morning with frost on the corral rail. He brought Sage out, the big roan, 16 hands, a stripe of white from forelock to nose, and he held the bridle while he talked. You ever sit a horse? Not like this one? Not a Boston horse. Boston horse with a side saddle in the public garden when I was 12. My uncle's horse. He died the next year. The horse, not my uncle. My uncle is unfortunately well. He laughed. It was the first time I had heard him laugh. It was a low, quiet sound that came up from his chest, as if it were used to being kept in. You'll ride astride out here, he said. Side saddles for parade. Side saddle gets a woman killed on this country. I have no skirt for it. I'll cut you one. He cut me a riding skirt that afternoon out of a dark wool blanket, kneeling on the cabin floor with a pair of shears and a tape, measuring my hip without quite touching me. The calm, pale blue eyes coming up to mine every few seconds for permission, and I gave it every time. With a small nod, he would catch and acknowledge with the smallest tip of his bearded chin. Hold still, he said. I am holding still. You're trembling. I am cold. You are not cold, he said, very quietly, into the shears. But I will pretend you are, because that is the kinder of the two things I could say. I did not answer. He cut the skirt. He stitched the waistband himself, sitting on the bench by the hearth that night with a steel needle and a length of waxed thread. And he handed it to me in the morning, folded the way a man folds something he has worked on after dark. Try it. Now. Out here. In the bedroom, then out here. I tried it. It fit. I came out into the yard. Hold the bridle. Like this. Like that. Now your left foot in the stirrup. Up. Other leg over. Don't be afraid of him. He knows. He knows what? He knows you've never sat astride a horse in your life. Sage is patient with first-timers. He is laughing at me. He is not laughing. He is breathing. You are doing fine. Hold the rein in this hand. Loose. Loose, Eleanor. He had said my own name without meaning to. He did not catch it that time. He went on, giving instruction. He walked beside the roan with one hand on the bridle for the first half hour, and his other hand on my knee, lightly, only steadying me. And I rode in a slow circle around the corral and out into the pine meadow beyond. And he walked beside me in the dust the whole way without his shirt, the long, deep diagonal scar catching the morning sun every few strides. How am I? You sit a horse like a Boston woman. Is that bad? It's pretty. Pretty isn't useful out here. Pretty, he said, is a thing a man notices anyway. He turned to lead Sage away before I could see his mouth. By the third week, we had a rhythm. He rose before the sun and split kindling in the cold dawn while I made coffee on the hearth. He went down the mountain on Sage by 7 and came back at dusk with the smell of the mine on him, silver dust and pine resin and gunpowder when the foreman had set a charge. And I had supper on the table by the time he washed. He taught me to read the snow line. That blue line on the north face, see it? Yes, that's the snow line. When it drops below that pine, the crooked one with the lightning split, we are inside winter. When it climbs above the bald rock, we are out. How long is winter here? 5 months, sometimes 6. You will hate February. Everyone hates February. I taught him to read a Boston letter aloud. You can't read. I can read print. I read the Bible most nights. I can read the mining contracts. But this script, this Boston lady script, it slides off me like wet ink. It's not difficult. It is to me. Then I'll teach you. He set the letter down. You'll teach me. In the evenings, by the hearth, after supper. We'll start with this letter, and we'll read a page a night until you can read any letter a Boston cousin sends a Boston cousin. Will that suit? That'll suit. Sit closer to the lamp. Closer. Closer. I cannot point at the loops if you sit at the end of the bench. This close. This close. We read. Every evening after supper, by the low light of the kerosene lamp, with the wind rising in the pines outside, I sat on the bench beside him, with my shoulder almost touching his bare brown shoulder, and I traced my finger along the looped Boston letters, and he repeated them after me, slow, unembarrassed, careful as a man handling a small living thing. He did not stumble out of pride. He stumbled the way an honest man stumbles, and corrected himself, and looked at me sideways every few sentences, as if to ask whether he was doing this right, and every time I nodded, he kept going. By the end of that week, he could read my own cousin's hand without help. He read the last paragraph aloud one night and looked up at me. She loves you. She's my cousin. She loves you. Yes. Good. Why good? Because I want to know who else has loved you, so I know what kind of company I'm keeping. Silas. Hush. Read me the next page. He folded the letter carefully and gave it back to me, and his calloused thumb brushed my palm when he gave it, and neither of us said anything about the brush of his thumb. And that night I did not sleep for an hour 'cause of it. The fourth week, he gave me the bird. It was a Tuesday. The date that would have been my birthday if I had told him my real birthday, which fell 2 weeks before Cordelia's, our mother having always insisted on celebrating both on Cordelia's date, because Cordelia minded and I did not. I had not told him my birthday. I had told him Cordelia's birthday was not for another month and a half. He had nodded. But that Tuesday he came in from the woodshed at dusk with one hand behind his back and the other hand on the door latch and a look on his face I had not seen before, half shy, half stubborn. And he held the hand out and opened the fingers, and on the calloused palm sat a small hand-carved wooden bird. It was a meadowlark. He had carved it from a knot of pine. The wings were folded. The beak was open as if it were singing. The grain ran along the breast in a soft curl that caught the firelight. It's not your birthday, he said, but it's a Tuesday, and Tuesdays are good for small things. Silas. I carve in the woodshed in the evenings. I always have. You did not say so. A man does not always say what he does in the woodshed. A man does some things to keep his hands moving in the dark. How long did this one take? 3 weeks. 3 weeks. I started it the second night you were here. Silas, I was not going to give it to you. Then I thought I would. It's beautiful. It's a meadowlark. They sing here in May. I thought you should have one for May. I'll keep it forever. Keep it on the windowsill. Which one? That one, above the hearth. Why there? Because that is where it ought to live, where you'll see it from the bed in the morning, and where I'll see it from the bench at night. I put it on the windowsill that night. It sat there in the kerosene lamplight, singing its silent song, and Silas, who had banked the fire and stretched his bare brown shoulders against the bench, looked at it once across the room and did not look at it again, the way a man does not look directly at a thing he loves in case the looking gives him away. I thought, that night, in the bedroom, with the moon on the floorboards, he is in love with the woman he thinks I am. I thought, which woman does he think I am? I did not answer myself. The 5th week, the snow came. It came in the night, 3 feet of it, and Silas could not get down to the mine, and we were closed in for 2 days. On the second night, the wind died at last, and the cabin was so quiet I could hear his breathing on the bedroll by the hearth. I came out wrapped in the wool shawl. He sat up. "Can't sleep." "No. Sing me something." "What?" "Sing me something. You hum at the hearth in the mornings. You think I don't hear. I hear. Sing me something Boston, something a Boston nurse would sing a Boston child." I did not know what came out of my mouth before it came out. It was a Boston Irish lullaby my mother had sung me, the only thing my mother had sung me alone. Cordelia had been afraid of the dark, but I had been the easy sleeper, and so the lullaby had been mine, the only thing in my childhood that had been only mine. I sang it low. I sang it without the words first, only the tune, and then with the words when my throat opened, and Silas listened with his eyes closed and his bare brown shoulder against the cold hearthstones, and the long diagonal scar rising and falling with his breath. And when I stopped, he did not open his eyes for a long moment. "That's not a Boston song." "No. What is it?" "My mother was Irish. She came in 52, from Cork." I wasn't supposed to know it." "Why?" "My sister wasn't taught it. She was afraid of the dark. My mother sang her hymns instead. The Irish songs were for the easy sleeper. I was the easy sleeper. I wasn't supposed to remember the lullaby. My mother told me when I was 4, not to sing it to anyone, because nice Boston children did not know Cork songs. But I do remember it. I have remembered it for 19 years. "Sing me another." "I only have the one." "Sing me the one again, then." He opened his eyes then. He looked at me a long moment in the firelight. He did not say anything about the name Cordelia. He said, very quietly, "Sing it again." I sang it again. When I finished, he reached out one calloused hand without sitting up and laid it palm up on the floorboards between the bedroll and the bench. "Eleanor," I began, and stopped. I had almost said my own name in his mouth. "What?" "Nothing. Put your hand in mine." "Silas, put your hand in mine, just for a minute, just so I know you came in out of the snow." I put my hand in his. I did not think. I did. His fingers closed around mine slowly, and I felt the rough place at the base of his thumb where the axe haft sat. And I felt the warm pulse of him in his wrist. And we sat that way until the fire burned down to red coals. He did not pull me down to the bedroll. He did not ask. He held my hand on the floorboards until I was warm enough and sleepy enough to take it back, and when I took it back, he let it go. "Good night, my dear." "Good night, Silas." He had not called me my dear before. He had not called me Cordelia either. The 6th week, he told me about the limp. I had not seen the limp. He hid it in the cabin. But on the 6th Saturday, we walked out into the pine meadow with the rifle because he wanted to teach me to shoot, and on the way back, he caught a root with his right boot, and the wince crossed his face faster than he could stop it, and he stopped and let out one slow breath and said, "Sit a minute with me," and sat down on a fallen log. I sat. "It's the leg," he said. "Your leg. Right hip. There's a thing in it that doesn't sit right. I came off a horse in 79, a roan before sage, onto a slate scree, and the horse came down on top of me, and we slid 60 feet together. I broke the right thigh. I broke the right collarbone. I broke a rib that punched through and made the scar I carry. The thigh set crooked. There's a limp on cold days I keep mostly out of sight because I am vain enough not to want it seen, and stubborn enough not to want it pitied. Today I caught it on the root. I'm telling you because if I don't tell you and you see it, you'll think I'm hiding something. You are hiding it. I am. Why are you telling me now? He looked at me a long moment. The pale blue eyes were very steady. Because I don't want to hide things from you, he said. And because a man who carves a meadowlark for a woman ought to be able to tell her his bones are crooked. I did not know what to say. He said, there is one other thing. Yes. My mother's name was Adeline Byrne. She died of fever in Pennsylvania in '63 when I was 10. I have not said her name out loud to another soul in 20 years. I am saying it now because a man ought to say his mother's name out loud at least once to the woman he means to keep. Adeline. Adeline. That's a beautiful name. It is. Silas. What? I almost said it. I almost said, my mother was named Margaret Ellen, and I am called Eleanor for her, and I am not your Cordelia. I almost said it on the fallen log with his crooked thigh against my knee, and his calm pale blue eyes on my face, and the long diagonal scar rising and falling with the breath he was holding for me to speak. I did not say it. I said, I'm glad you told me. He nodded. He took my hand. He helped me up off the log. He limped openly now, all the way home, and I matched my step to his without comment, and he did not put on the shirt the cool dusk would have justified. A man is vain about different things in different weeks. And we came into the cabin together with the meadowlark on the windowsill, and the King James Bible on the bedside table, and the kerosene lamp burning low. The 7th week, I could no longer pretend I was not falling in love with him. It happened on a Thursday at the well. I was hauling the bucket up by the rope, and the rope had slipped against the rim. Lean back into it. It's caught. It's not caught. The ropes slipped the lip. Put your weight on it. I am putting my weight on it. You are not, Eleanor. Lean back, like this. His bare brown forearm came over my shoulder, and his calloused hand closed over both my hands on the rope, and he hauled the bucket up the last 6 feet with me inside the circle of his arm, and he set the bucket on the well rim, and he did not step back. Eleanor, he said, and then caught himself and corrected. I'm sorry. For what? You almost said her name. I almost said yours. The cold went out of my hands. I did not turn around. He did not move. After a long moment, his calloused hand left mine, and the warmth of his bare arm went away from my shoulder, and he picked up the full bucket and carried it inside without another word, and I stood at the well rim with both gloved hands empty and my breath gone, and the high pine wind in my hair. And I knew the way a woman knows. I had no language for it yet, but I knew. That night at supper, he was quieter than usual. He cut bread. He passed the salt. He looked at me twice across the lamp and looked away. And finally, with the spoon halfway to his mouth, he set it down and said, I'd like to ask you something. Yes. Was your mother kind to you? What? Your mother, the Irish one, the one who sang you the lullaby. Was she kind to you, or did she only sing it the once? She was kind. Tell me about her. She crossed in '52, I said. From Cork. She married a Boston bookseller who set type in a basement on Tremont Street. She gave birth to twins on a Thursday in February in a third-floor walk-up on Carver Street, 11 minutes apart, both of us with the cord around our necks, both of us howling. She liked to say we had both come into the world objecting. That sounds like a woman. She was a woman. Tell me about her. She favored my sister. Did she? Openly, not from cruelty. My mother had no cruelty in her, from the tired pull of a tired woman toward the easier child. Cordelia was the brighter one, and the louder one, and the one who learned her letters first. And my mother had 2 daughters and no time, and a husband who kept dying of a cough that took 6 years to finish him. And so she gave Cordelia the front of her attention and gave me the back of it, and she sang me the Irish lullaby because it was the one thing she had to give that no one had asked her for. And then she died of pleurisy in 78. I was 13. She held my hand at the end, not Cordelia's, only because Cordelia was at a Latin recitation that afternoon. The holding of my hand felt, even then, like a small gift my mother had not meant to give, but had given anyway. I have not told that to a soul in 10 years. You've told me. I've told you. All right then, he listened. He listened the way Silas listened, without interrupting, without nodding too much, without the small Boston murmurs of agreement that other men make to keep a woman talking. He let me say it. When I was done, he reached across the lamp and laid one calloused hand flat on the table, palm up, between the tin plates. Put your hand in mine, Silas. Put it in mine, the way you did on the floor that night with the lullaby. I put my hand in his. He closed his fingers around mine the way he had closed them around the rope at the well, slow and exact. She was kind. Yes, I am glad of it. Why glad? Because a man ought to know whether the woman he loves was loved by her own mother. Otherwise, he does not know what kind of warmth she is used to. He does not know how to hold her. You said loves. I did. You said the woman he loves. I did. Silas, I am not going to take it back. I have wanted to say it since the snow night. I have been waiting for a Wednesday when I could say it across a lamp without my voice cracking. This is the Wednesday. I did not contradict him. I did not breathe. He let go of my hand to bring the lamp closer, because the wick was dying. He trimmed it. He set it back. We finished supper. He washed the tin plates in the basin in the corner with his bare back to me and the long diagonal scar to the lamp, and when he turned around with the towel over his shoulder, he said, "Will you read to me by the fire tonight?" "Yes." "The letter from Boston. It's the same letter. I want to hear it again." He sat on the bench. I sat beside him. I read my cousin's letter aloud to him for the second time in a fortnight, and when I came to the line about a Boston spring I had not seen and would never see again, his bare brown shoulder came against mine and stayed there. He did not put an arm around me. He set his shoulder against my shoulder, and he kept it there. The long diagonal scar, a thin line of warmth along my collarbone through the wool of my dress, and I read on without tripping. And when I finished, he said, "Read me a hymn," and I read him the 90th Psalm, slow, and he closed his eyes against my shoulder, and when I finished, he said, "Good night, my dear," and went to the bedroll without looking back. The 8th week, I could no longer pretend he was not falling in love with me. He showed me by the things he stopped doing. He stopped riding down to the mine on Sundays. "You said you always worked Sundays." "I did." "You're not riding out today." "I'm not." "Why?" "Because Sundays are for the woman who keeps a man's hearth, and I would rather sit by mine than ride down to dust." He stopped putting on the shirt when he came in from the yard, though he had been polite about it the first weeks. He stopped calling supper and started calling it ours. "Ours is on the table," he said in the door one evening, with a small, awkward tip of his bearded chin. "Ours." "That's what I said." He showed me by the things he started doing. He started leaving small things on the table for me. A pressed wildflower from the meadow, a clean, smooth river, stone the color of slate, A second carved bird, smaller, a wren this time, that he set beside the meadowlark on the windowsill on a Sunday morning without comment. "Two birds now," I said. "A pair," he said. "They mate for life." "I know," he said, and went out to saddle Sage. He did not ask about my sister. He did not ask why I had come. He did not ask whose name was on the contract. He asked me other things instead. "What color were the curtains in your mother's kitchen?" "Yellow, a pale yellow with small white flowers stitched along the hem." "Did the Boston Public Garden have swans in May?" "Two pair, white, and they hated children." "Can you whistle?" "Not well." "Whistle for me." "No, Silas." "Some other night then." "Some other night." "Do you know the constellations?" "Not the ones over the Sawtooths." He took me out into the yard the next clear night with a wool blanket over my shoulders and his bare brown arm around me to keep me steady on the icy boards, and he stood behind me and pointed up at the cold sky over the pines. "That one's Orion, the hunter, 3 stars in a line for his belt. I see him. That one's the plow, the handle, and the bowl. I see it. That one over the south pine is Cassiopeia, the W. Some folks see a chair. I see the W. And those 2 bright ones, right there. Those are the twins." His bearded chin came down against my temple as he pointed, and I leaned back against his bare brown chest in the wool blanket, and the long diagonal scar was a band of warmth across my shoulder blade through the wool, and he said, very quiet, against my hair, "Castor and Pollux, brothers, but they always come together. Sisters too sometimes. Sometimes. My sister and I were twins when we were small. I imagine you were. She was Castor, the bright one. I was the other one. Pollux," he said. "Pollux is the brighter of the 2 on a clear night. Most folks get it backwards." I did not answer. He held me there until the cold won, and then he walked me inside, and he banked the fire, and he went to the bedroll, and he said, "Good night, my dear." And the next morning when I came out into the yard with the coffee pot, the constellations were still over the south pine, and so was the small thought he had planted under my ribs, that I had been Pollux and not Castor, and that nobody in 23 years had said it. The 9th and 10th weeks I lived inside the lie like a woman lives inside a house she did not build, but has come to love the smell of. And every morning I made coffee on the hearth. And every evening I read a letter or a page of scripture aloud to him by the lamp. And every night I lay in the bedroom, listening to him bank the fire and turn on the bedroll and breathe. And every morning I asked the tin mirror, "Who are you tonight, Eleanor?" And every morning the answer that began to come back was his. In the 10th week, he asked me one night, across the supper table, with the lamp between us and the wind rising in the pines, "Do you ever miss Boston?" "Sometimes." "What part?" "My mother's grave, the Athenaeum, the way the Charles River looks in November when there is fog." "What don't you miss?" "Being the second twin." He set down his spoon. "You said second." "Did I?" "You said second twin, not second sister. Twin." Eleanor." He had said it. He had said the name. He said it without flinching and without correcting himself, and his calm, pale blue eyes did not look away, and his calloused hand stayed flat on the table, and I sat there with my mouth open and my pulse in my ears and the small, clear knowledge running through me that he had been saying it in his head for 9 weeks and had finally let one syllable out. I did not correct him. I said, "Yes, the second twin, the 11 minutes younger one, the one whose name nobody learned at the school recital, the one who was always the practice run for the other one. I do not miss being her. I will not miss being her. Whatever else I am out here, I am not her, and I would rather be cold and tired and unsure of my own face every morning than be that woman in that house in that city for one more winter. Eleanor, don't. Why not? Because if you say it again, I will tell you everything tonight, and I am not ready tonight. He looked at me a long moment. All right, he said, not tonight, but soon. Soon. I will wait. I have been waiting. I am good at waiting. He was. He was good at waiting. He waited another week. He waited until the 11th week, when I lifted the King James Bible to dust and the daguerreotype fell out into my lap, and the waiting was over for both of us at once. The 11th week, I found the daguerreotype. It was a Wednesday afternoon. He had ridden down to the mine. The cabin was empty. I was dusting the shelf above the bedside table. I had begun, in small ways, to keep his cabin the way a wife keeps a house. And I lifted the worn King James Bible to dust under it, and the leather binding cracked open at a marker. And the marker was the small tin daguerreotype my sister had mailed him in October. My sister's face. My sister's slightly more upright carriage, the sharper line at the mouth that no one but she and I and our mother had ever been able to see. The cameo at the throat, the cream silk dress. I sat down on the edge of the bed with the daguerreotype in my hand for a long time. Then I understood. He had kept it. He had kept it not in a drawer, but in his Bible. He had kept it where he kept the things he prayed over. He had kept it for 11 weeks, from the first night I slept under his roof, and he had never once, in all that time, looked at me and called me by her name, because he had known. He had known the morning I got off the train. He had known when his calloused thumb lifted the veil and he stopped for one full breath. He had known the 8 nights he slept on the bedroll by the hearth before I came out in the shawl and sat beside him. He had known when he carved me a meadowlark on a Tuesday. He had known when he told me Adeline. He had known the whole time, and he had been waiting, patient as a man waits at a wagon platform for a stagecoach he has counted days for me to tell him. I sat with the daguerreotype until the shadow of the pine moved across the floorboards and turned gold and turned long. I heard Sage on the switchback. I heard the saddle creak. I heard his boots on the porch boards. I heard the door. He came in. He was carrying an axe over his right shoulder. He had stopped at the woodshed before the cabin, and he was bare-chested and dust-streaked, and the long diagonal scar caught the late light, and he saw me on the edge of the bed before I had moved, and he saw the daguerreotype in my hand. He stopped. He did not put down the axe right away. He looked at me and at the small tin frame in my hand, and his pale blue eyes did the thing they had done at the platform on the first day. Went through something I could not name and came back out the other side, and he said, very quietly, I wondered when. You knew. I knew. From when? From the moment I lifted the veil. I could not speak for a moment. How? He set the axe against the door frame. He did not come closer. The carriage, he said. The face was the same. The carriage was different. The line at the corner of the mouth. The lift of the chin when you looked up at me. The way you did not know my name in your throat the first night when I told you it. You did not know it. The woman in the daguerreotype had written it 3 times. You did not know it. I knew it before I climbed up onto the wagon seat. You said nothing. I said nothing. For 11 weeks. For 11 weeks. Why? He looked at me a long moment. The light through the small window was almost gone. The meadowlark on the windowsill was a small, dark shape. Because the woman who got off the train was the woman I had been waiting for, he said. I just hadn't known her name yet. I figured you'd tell me when you were ready. I figured a woman who put on her sister's veil to come west on a stagecoach for a stranger was a woman with a reason. I figured the reason would come out of her mouth in her own time and not before. I have been waiting for you to tell me. Silas, I'm here. You let me lie to you for 11 weeks. You didn't lie. You never said her name. I never said her name either, you notice. I never said it once. I could not bring myself to call you a name that wasn't yours, so I called you nothing at all. You called me my dear. I called you my dear because that was the only honest thing I had. I stood up. The daguerreotype was still in my hand. I crossed the room to him, slow, the way he had crossed the platform to me on the first day, and I stopped 2 feet from him with the small tin frame between us. Silas, I said. Yes. I am going to tell you my name now. Tell me. Eleanor. My voice came out flat and quiet and steady. Not Cordelia. Eleanor. I said it again because he did not move. Eleanor Margaret Whitmore. I am the younger twin. I was born 11 minutes after my sister, and I have been 11 minutes behind her my whole life. My sister fell in love with a Boston Latin school teacher 6 weeks before the train. She sent me in her place because she could not face you and because she could not face herself. I signed my own name underneath hers on your contract the morning of the train. The contract is folded under the wool stockings in my valise. I signed it in pencil. I will sign it in ink if you ask me. I am Eleanor. He did not move for one long breath. If you have ever been the one nobody chose first, subscribe to Ridge and Vow. We tell these stories because some men are quietly in the business of seeing the right face the first time, even through a veil. Then he set down the axe. He set it carefully against the door frame, the way a man sets down a thing he does not want to drop. He walked across the cabin yard, floorboards to me. 3 slow strides, the right hip catching once and held. And he stopped in front of me, and he took the small tin daguerreotype out of my hand, and he set it face down on the edge of the bed without looking at it, and he took both my hands in both of his, and he held them. Eleanor, he said. It came out in the same voice he had said Adeline in. The same voice. The voice a man uses for the names he does not say lightly. Eleanor. Silas. Eleanor. Yes. That's the name I've been waiting to hear for 11 weeks. Silas. Hush a minute. Let me say it again. Eleanor. Eleanor. Eleanor Margaret Whitmore. His pale blue eyes were very bright and very calm. I'm Silas Byrne. I'm a silver mine foreman in Idaho Territory. I built this cabin with my own hands. I have a crooked right thigh from a horse in '79. I had a mother named Adeline. I carve meadowlarks in the woodshed. I love a woman named Eleanor. Have I got that right? Yes. Have I got the name right? Yes. Say it once more for me, just so I have it. Eleanor. He brought both my hands up to his mouth, and he kissed the knuckles of my left hand and the knuckles of my right hand, slow, one and then the other, and the calloused thumb pads pressed gently against the backs of my fingers. And he said, into my fingers, "Then we'd best get you out of the cold." It was the same line he had said on the platform to a woman in a black mourning veil whose face he had just seen for the first time. And now he was saying it in the doorway of the cabin to a woman whose name he had just heard for the first time. And the sentence had folded over on itself across 11 weeks. and was now the only sentence he could have said. I started crying. I had not cried since the first night on the train. I cried into his bare, brown chest, with my forehead against the long, diagonal scar and his arms around me, careful as a man holds a small, living thing, and he did not shush me. He let me cry. He held me until the crying was over, and then he held me a little longer for the warmth, and then he stepped back and lifted my chin with one calloused thumb, the way he had lifted the veil, and he said, very quietly, "I've been calling you my dear for 6 weeks. I'd like to call you Eleanor now if you'll let me. The rest of it can keep till morning." Silas. "Yes, Eleanor. I would like that." That night he did not sleep on the bedroll by the hearth. He banked the fire low. He blew out the kerosene lamp. He carried me, carefully, the bad hip held steady, across the threshold into the bedroom that had been mine alone for 11 weeks, and he laid me down on the hand-built bed, and he sat on the edge of it with his bare brown back to me for a long moment and his head bent, and I could see in the moonlight through the small window the long diagonal scar bent forward over his knees. "Silas, I know. Lie down. I know." He lay down beside me, on top of the wool blanket, fully himself in his buckskin trousers, and he put one warm arm over my waist as carefully as a man lays a hand on a Bible, and he said into my hair, "Good night, Eleanor," and I said into his bare shoulder, "Good night, Silas," and he was asleep before I was. The crooked right thigh trembled once against my knee in the dark and went still. I lay awake for a long time, listening to him breathe and watching the small, dark shape of the meadowlark on the windowsill in the moonlight, and feeling, for the first time in 23 years, what it was to be held by a man who knew my name. A year later, 1 full year, I sat at the cabin door at dawn and I wrote it down. I wrote it in the small cloth-bound book Cordelia had packed for me with the Tennyson, in the blank pages at the back. I wrote it in my own hand, in pencil, the way I had signed my own name on the contract 11 months and 11 weeks before, because some things ought to live in pencil. I wrote, "My name is Eleanor Margaret Whitmore Byrne. I came west on my sister's bride fair in a black mourning veil, and I stepped down off a stagecoach at Sawtooth Crossing into the cold last light of an October sunset, and a bare-chested mountain man crossed an empty platform to me with a calloused thumb already lifted, and he turned the veil back over the brim of my bonnet, and he saw a face that was not the face he had been promised, and he stopped for exactly 1 breath, and he kept walking forward." I wrote, "He had known. He had known the whole time." I wrote, "Cordelia is married now to her school teacher in a Beacon Hill parish. She writes me twice a year. Her letters are kind. She does not ask if I forgive her. I have not yet decided whether I do, but I have decided that the question matters less than I once thought it did, because she sent me through a door I could not have opened on my own, and the man on the other side of the door was a man who would have seen the right face whether I came through it or not." I wrote, "It is March. The snow is melting on the south slope. Silas is in the yard splitting kindling at the chopping block, bare-chested in the cold morning the way he has been bare-chested in the cold morning every morning of our marriage, because that is the kind of man he is. And the long diagonal scar across his sternum catches the gold dawn the way it caught the gold dusk the first time I saw it." I wrote, "The small hand-carved wooden meadowlark is on the windowsill where he set it on the Tuesday in May. It is not moved. He moves the King James Bible to dust, and he moves the lamp to refill it, And he moves the tin cup, but he does not move the meadowlark. I asked him once why. He said, "Some things sit where they sit." I wrote, "I have learned to ride sage astride. I have learned to read the snow line. I have taught Silas to read any letter a Boston cousin sends a Boston cousin. He read me the marriage banns himself, slow and careful, the night before the parson came up the mountain. He read my own full name aloud, Eleanor Margaret Whitmore, and he did not stumble once. I wrote, 'There is going to be a child in October. He does not know yet. I will tell him tonight. I will tell him by the hearth, by the lamplight, the way he told me about Adeline. Once, plainly, and then once more for the both of us. I will tell him the child will be a girl, because I know it will be a girl. And I will tell him I would like to name her Adeline if he is willing. And I think he will be willing. And I think when I say the name, his pale blue eyes will do the thing they did at the platform and at the daguerreotype and on the fallen log. Go through something he cannot name and come back out the other side of it. And he will set down whatever he is holding and walk across the cabin to me and take both my hands. I wrote, "The day a man saw the wrong face and chose her anyway was the day she stopped being the second twin." I wrote, "That woman was me." I closed the small cloth-bound book. I set it on the table beside the lamp. I went out through the cabin door into the cold gold dawn, and Silas saw me on the porch and stopped the axe mid-swing and lowered it, and the long diagonal scar caught the light, and he set the axe carefully against the chopping block, and he limped openly the way he limped now, because the woman he meant to keep had told him she did not need him to hide his bones, across the yard to me, and he took my hands in both of his calloused hands, and he said my name first, the way he had said it that night in the cabin, Eleanor. And then he kissed the knuckles of my left hand and the knuckles of my right hand, slow, one and then the other, and the meadowlark on the windowsill behind us caught the dawn through the small glass pane, and I understood, fully, for the first time, that I had been chosen first after all. Not first by my mother, not first by my sister, not first by a Boston dance card, but first by the only person whose first had ever been worth the having. And that, in the end, was all the firsts I had ever needed.